すべての存在は滅びるようにデザインされている。生と死を繰り返す螺旋に私たちは囚われ続けている。
So, Nier Automata released at last, even if it happened to be a few days after America, which made the waiting pain even more substantial looking at all the people playing it on my feed, but it's here. Before I go any further though, I would like to thank Mr. Klemps for his permission to use some of his original Nier footage. You can go check his stuff over at his channel, which I will link in the description and probably on screen. He offers a lot of really well researched and insightful content on the Nier and Dragon Guard series. It's got to be a better name for that though, because Dark Souls and Bloodborne, they have like Soulsborne, so maybe Draconeer. I don't know. But yeah, thanks for that. I would have liked to capture the footage myself in an ideal world, but this is what my PS3 looks like right now. I'm working on it. But moving on to things, it's obligatory spoiler warning time, because I'm going to be showing off a few gameplay segments that are probably better to experience on your own, and maybe a little bit of Nier 2010, just for context. That being said, it's going to be pretty mild, so it definitely won't ruin anything for you. Just don't go into this video if you intend to go into the game blind, and actually, honestly, those people aren't here anyway, because why would they be? This is a pretty dumb spoiler warning I'm doing. The script's still going, because I realised this as I'm writing it, apparently. Moving on from that train wreck of an intro, let's talk about the game itself, right? Just for a bit of catch-up though, I'm going to recap some of the facts, so bear with me here. Self-contained and critical mess, the original Nier left a lot to be desired in many areas, but I think it really delivered on an interesting story, set of characters, and honestly what I might consider my favourite soundtrack of all time. I'll put a pin in that for, I'll dwell on it a bit more. The unfortunate reception mostly boiled down to the lackluster visuals, repetitive gameplay, less than stellar RPG mechanics, and for all intensive purposes, it more or less failed as an actual game, regardless of delivering a memorable story. But lo and behold, at E3 2015 we got a bit of a shock. The new game, New Nier, with Taro and Platinum combining their efforts. I mean, the trailer basically boiled down to concept art, which left me a bit uninterested at first, but it provoked a lot of discussion and, well, a lot of excitement in the Nier and Dragon Guard fanbase. And if it wasn't completely clear, I had no clue what a Nier was when the reveal hit, so it didn't create much of a response from me. It wasn't until me and my friend booted up the demo for Automata in like January. Automata, whatever. I really fell for the game then, prompting me to drop money on the original, and I definitely don't regret that if it wasn't already clear about that too. I quickly fell in love with the game and its characters, despite the gameplay issues I had. It's not a perfect story though. I mean, I ended the game with a lot of questions that only got answers by researching the external Japanese stuff, like visual novels, things like that. I didn't go into that personally. I read Grimoire Nier, which has been kindly translated by the community. Props to these guys for doing God's work. Long story short, in the space of months, I've become mildly obsessed with these two titles, so I've had a lot of unusual hype for Automata, and this is coming from someone who's typically pretty cynical, So did I like the game? Well, I mean, I loved it. And I'm basically just using this video as an excuse to talk about that, so this might fall a bit too far from objective review territory and seep into the more personal aspect of things. So you might want to be warned about that. Anyway, moving on, the premise is simple. It's been a few thousand years since the events of Nier, and since then there's been an alien invasion, of all things. Aliens come down on humans, aware of their weakness against the Force, decide to hotfoot it to the moon, with robot gothic Lolitas then sent down to purge the land of alien created machines in an attempt to reclaim the Earth for humanity. I mean, that's what you're told at least. You're an android following orders, and the game makes it clear it's above your pay grade to question those orders. And speaking of androids, you follow 9S and 2B as you fulfill your instructed duty for the glory of mankind. And it really just goes on from there. I can definitely say that the game goes into much deeper territory than the on-the-cover premise. It's just the first layer of a complex moral complex moral onion? Okay, I'm gonna need to start getting a writer. Anyway, games about androids, and if fiction's taught us anything, there's always going to be a tale about robots and their relationship with emotions. Granted, it's become somewhat of a common topic and discussion in media, With recent movies like Ex Machina, games like Persona 3 and the upcoming David Cage thing, it's been done. But regardless of this, I do think it offers an interesting perspective, more on the failures and nature of humanity, to almost misanthropic levels, and I'm something of a depressing individual, so I lap that stuff up. I must say I find myself more attached to the characters from the original Nier though. I can't deny this game has offered some I'll likely never forget, but I don't know, they just didn't feel as strong. I must admit an example of like some strong characters that I quite liked were Adam and Eve. They're some delightful little friends that look prettier than is reasonable, but they didn't get enough screen time in my opinion. But yeah, no, all in all, it's a Taro story. It's fucking depressing, but not without thought-provoking tones of existentialism and fear. I love it. And accompanying these story elements, we have yet another amazing score from Drakengard veteran Keiichi Okabe. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And honestly, this is some of the best stuff I've ever heard, and it fits my taste of weird music very well. I must say I'm hesitant to say it's better than Nier 2010's or that I prefer it, but it's definitely close, and the music reinforces the story and excellently choreographed cutscenes incredibly well, and this game is all the better for it. It's truly brilliant composition. So okay, let's move on to one of the most anticipated aspects of Nier Automata, or what I perceive to be, and that's the gameplay. We're coming from less than ideal combat of Nier and Drakengard games to platinum level stuff, and the sheer difference is incredible to think about. You look at stuff like this and imagine it looking like this, but don't get ahead of yourself with that. Because as exciting as that may seem, it's not strictly a character action game, it's more of an RPG. So that means a lot of the combat gets toned down for the sake of simplicity. There'll be a lot less of this, and a bit more straight to the point combat. You'll still have those platinum moments, and boy they're great, but this game takes the longer nature of an RPG and its quantity of enemy encounters into account, in a way that it makes those over-the-top moments a lot more special by refusing to overbear you with them. I feel like they've acknowledged that you can have too much of a good thing, and I feel that Platinum have demonstrated that with this level of restraint. That being said, this is easily the most satisfying combat in an RPG that I have ever experienced. The animation work is also top-notch, making every action smooth and satisfying to watch. We've even got little Revengeance codec conversations, and what is essentially the diet version of Witch Time. Elements of previous projects attributed to this accumulation of talent on both sides. It's truly fascinating to see the world built with the mind of Taro and the skill of Platinum. You've also got some neat little mechanics too, like plug-in chip customization, where the devs have clearly taken advantage of the fact that you're an android by implementing a contextualized HUD with elements fully customizable as if they are all just programs on your Android hard drive. I love that. You have a memory limit too, so you choose a loadout that suits your playstyle best instead of just chucking whatever you want inside. Like, you have to think about this stuff. Plus you also have this like Dark Souls-esque mechanic where death leads to your chips present on your previous body, requiring recovery in order to not lose them forever. Also you have these cute little death messages you can write for yourself and other players to see. I love that. I can be as poetic as I want with no effort at all. And believe it or not, these corpses do play a part for other people too. Connecting to the online lets you revive or garner buffs from them in order to assist yourself, so it's a temporary thing you get. But I feel it adds a lot to the experience, and I get to read everyone else's little poems. It's a lot of nifty little features that offer a ton of customization, and it's a concept that's lacking in the previous Nier, so I think they've built on that. That being said, while I do enjoy the raw and exhilarating hack and slash of 2B's campaign, switching over to 9S resulted in a lot of hacking, which it's basically a minimalist HUD and fairly simple minigame, and you use that to overcome your fights. And while a novel and interesting idea at first, with the less combat-oriented model using sheer intellect to triumph over them, the action of hacking becomes ridiculously tedious, leading to scenarios where I just outwardly avoid the combat due to the boredom. It is a real shame because he has what I would say are the best character moments in the game, unfortunately in the shadow of less than stellar gameplay for him. But overall, the gameplay I would say is still fantastic, but it's not perfect. A few things could have been done to offset these problems and have unfortunately gone ignored in the final release. Maybe at least upping his fighting capacity or utilising more interesting hacking mechanics could have helped, but alas for now it's staying this way. Also I might as well mention that while I love these mech sections and how they basically turn Nier into a full-on bullet hell, the rigidity of their movements isn't very satisfying in contrast to the rest of their game. I get that this was probably done to keep these sections responsive, but the lack of weight when you control these mechs, it just kind of bugged me. That might be a personal preference. Also worth talking about is the open world, which plays more of a role of a quasi-hub environment, to a similar tune of the earlier Zelda games, and of course like Nier 2010. This really does complement the game in my opinion, as it allows a glimpse of a few different environments, and the toll that time has taken on them since the few thousand years that have passed. And it does all this in a way that is easy to traverse and small enough to become familiar with. In some ways it actually provokes thoughts in my mind of what other districts might have ended up like, and some could argue that those areas were worth exploring in the game rather than just thinking about, but I feel imagination and discussion plays a large degree in these games. It helps that you're an android too, so you can move as fast as a car, so it's not really too big of a deal, and the game really benefits from the later fast travel, as I must admit the game world suffers greatly without it. You play enough without the fast travel to become familiar with the world, but not too much as to become fatigued by it. It's not perfect, but it's clearly been thought about by the devs. And playing into this world, you have a lot of things to do in the shape of side quests, which typically offer a fair amount of EXP and resources. Some fetches are a bit fetchy, but thankfully pretty short, and at points they have an interesting story to them. And this is just off the back of my gripes with the latest Zelda, and I can safely say I think this game does them in a slightly less tiring way, because I actually felt obliged to do them. All in all, it's a thoroughly okay world with a decent and reasonable size, with some solid art direction that perfectly encapsulates a nature-dominated post-apocalypse. It's a good-looking world in that respect, and has some fun little branching areas that really feel vibrant with colour and have a unique visual tone. And I like it. I very much respect that Platinum have put together this world while accounting for its own desire to maintain a high frame rate, and good smooth combat and traversal, but not without a bit of a cost. Running on the base PS4, we not only see that the drop to 900p was necessary, resulting in some substantial aliasing, but a frame rate that struggles hard to meet the target a lot of the time. And you couple this with some pop-in and incredibly annoying frame pacing stutter while traversing, and you have a less than optimal experience. I'm just kind of thanking God a PC version is on its way very soon, because I'm already dying to play this game again with better performance. It's totally serviceable, but I'm a picky, horrible person that really doesn't enjoy immersion-breaking technical issues in their games. During one boss fight, the audio actually cut out in my left ear, and I genuinely didn't know if that was Taro fucking with me or not. I mean, was it? I still don't know. I mean, what happened? My headphones are fine now. So wrapping this up, I just want to say that I love this game. It's as good as I'd hoped, and I really encourage you to give it a go if you're interested. You don't need to play the original to play this one, but I found that a lot of the little references made towards it definitely made me enjoy the game more than if I hadn't the context. But regardless, it's a good game with some flaws and all, but it's definitely worth your time. And definitely competes for one of my favourite games of all time. If I had to score it now, I'd maybe give it an 8.5 out of 10. Mainly because of the 9S campaign and a few technical downsides, and that's another story. All that's left is to buy the PC version and hope someone puts out a mod to get rid of this weird cutscene shit. I don't get it. I know it's a stylistic choice, but come on, it's stressing me out. Why is it so uneven? I need to go lie down. Goodbye.